Hey, welcome back to What the Tech. Today I'm joined by a longtime marketing genius and a friend. He'll actually be walking us through a series that we put together on the latest digital marketing trends and how specifically AI is actually impacting marketing in 2023 and beyond. So today's episode is all about how AI is changing content creation. Let's go. All right. For this episode, I'm actually really pleased to have my friend, Tony Boomanglog, who's actually the founder of Gear Nova and several other tech companies. He's actually been a leading expert in not only marketing, but artificial intelligence, how it's actually changing content creation. And so today I'm really pumped about having a conversation with him, especially with his 20 years of experience. So, hey, welcome to the show, Tony.
Hey, Troy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, we were kind of laughing beforehand, just having a good time. And I really have been excited about this conversation, Tony, because I know you're not out there a ton, but, in all of our conversations, they're always so entertaining and a lot of fun. And so I'm excited to have other people get to know you as well as I do. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just trying to get into the mix with influencers and content creation. So really happy to be joining.
Well, I think it'll be the perfect mix because, to be honest with you, Tony, you're such an expert. This should be really easy for you. But I also know that it can be a little nerve-wracking jumping on here. But what I want to talk about today is right in your zone of genius. So, and I'm excited about it because I think the game, there's things that happen that change an industry, that change somebody's opportunity within that industry. And I think artificial intelligence has done that in a variety of different areas. And specifically, we've seen a huge change in the way that, these tools are impacting your ability on social, on content creation, marketing in general. And so we're actually going to systematically go through each one of these, and we're going to kind of tap into some of those things you've been doing a lot longer than most, and get some of that genius out of that brain. So, but today we're specifically going to focus on content creation. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So since the advent of, kind of leveraging some of these tools, I think the machine learning has been around for a long time, but specifically around content creation, it's the language models that we've seen, being able to create, blog posts, social media posts and things like that. But what have you seen? What's kind of been the evolution from the beginning of actually starting to see some of these tools and where we're at today?
Yeah. So, back in the day, I had teams of content writers, freelance writers, and it was very expensive. It was very time consuming, from ideation to planning to content creating to editing and then to publishing. It took maybe lead time a couple weeks to get a really good piece of content out. And I'm talking about blog posts that would review, gadgets, for example. And that just took forever. So when AI came out last December, it just was a no-brainer. Like, do I spend 2 weeks on this great piece of content, or do I spend 2 hours on a piece of content that's maybe 80, 90% good enough, and then that we could publish it and just move a lot faster? So, from that time, we've sped up our content creation by 10x. We can get a month's worth of content within a week, maybe a few days. So it's really just shifted things overnight in terms of speed. Quality wise, we still need some work. I think that it's still a little bit soon for us to think that AI is going to replace all the writers in the world. It's not there yet, but it's pretty impressive in how things have changed so fast in a few months. So we're talking about just lightning speed of content creation.
Yeah, I think that the big concern is quality because, with some of the models I've seen, there can be some redundancy in what it's sharing. And so I am curious when it comes to content creation, How do you leverage today these systems in an effective way so that the content is of some form of quality while also accessing the speed at which it provides?
I think the biggest takeaway there is that you cannot remove the human element from content creation. So a lot of the times where I've talked about AI with people that are just really excited to just churn out content, just crank it out, you know, they're approaching it as like an easy button to creating content. For example, I have a good friend that's starting up a new business in the beauty space, and he's trying to hit up all the beauty salons in America, and he's doing it so fast. And he's got a competitor that he's worked with in the past, and he's trying to catch up with them so fast that he's trying to crank out the content without even looking at the content. And he showed me his list of blog posts, and he had thousands of blog posts. I'm like, have you read any of these? And he didn't read any of them. And that's an extreme example, but what's going to happen is that one of those blog posts, there's going to be a margin of error where maybe 5% of those blog posts have some kind of like AI hallucination, right? Where AI is talking about this beauty salon or whatever beauty product, and they're going to say something that's completely incorrect, like factually incorrect, that doesn't exist in the world, or is actually not safe for beauty salons, for example. So he's going to put that out there, and he's going to tarnish his brand, and he's going to try to launch this out into the world as fast as possible. I'm like, you might want to not take the human element out completely. Like, it's fun. Like, he's having the time of his life, because for the past 15 years, he's been creating content himself. He's hired these freelancers. And I remember I met him, I think 2005, 2006, and he was, he was funding a business with another business to pay for content creation, design, and things like that. So I think now it's just so much easier just to hit that button without having to spend that money, and then just remove yourself from that piece of content. But you really have to check it. You really have to be the editor in chief, and be that human element to make sure that it's actually correct, because you can get in a lot of trouble where you can scale too fast and put the wrong kind of content out there, and now it's too late to take back. It's like the ball's in the air, you can't pull it back. So I think that's the number one thing is, to make sure that even if you can go as fast as you can, you might want to slow it down to make sure that you have that, quality control. So that way things are just better for the long-term strategy.
Absolutely. So
Yep.
how do you use it today? Like, do you use it more for outlining your content or writing it, or do you have a multi-step kind of process to do what you just said and vet, the quality of the systems that you're using?
Yeah. So, I take like two approaches to this. The first approach is if I want to create kind of short form content, like blog posts that are maybe 500 to 1,000 words. Let's say I'm reviewing, either a restaurant or a new gadget. And the second approach is that long form content where, maybe the ebook length where it's like 2,000, 3,000 words. But in terms of the process, what we do is we have AI, we use ChatGPT primarily just to start that conversation. We prompt it to say, pretend you're an expert digital marketer that's creating a content strategy for XYZ brand. What are the content pillars that you would suggest? And then it would spit out the content pillars. And then obviously we'd want to check it. Sometimes it just goes fringe, and we'll try to like reach and provide a content pillar that might not be the best fit for the brand. So like we have to kind of vet that. So like that's like the first vetting process is what kind of content pillars are we working with in terms of this long-term strategy, and what kind of content are we working in, short form or shorter form versus long form. And then after that, we start creating those outlines. And then once we create the outlines with AI, then we have it write each segment of the outline and then review that, and then send it off to our editor for publishing. And usually, the short form ones are pretty easy. We just have to make sure there's no like crazy hallucinations where it starts to talk, a little bit of gibberish. And that's happened. I've seen that like maybe like 5 out of 100 times where it'll stop generating, and then you ask it to continue generating, and it'll add something that's completely different from what it generated. So like kind of weird things are happening like that. So, but all in all, the short form content, easy to manage just because it's quick to review. And then the long form pieces of content. So we created an ebook that was maybe 3,000 words long, and it was a guide for a tourism brand. And we had to make sure that all the places that it was talking about, making recommendations on, that actually existed, and that it wasn't talking about a different location. Like you needed that human element to figure out, okay, is this actually factually correct? So that took a longer process, but it's the same kind of structure. We get the content pillars going, we get the outline going, then we start to do each segment on its own, and then have our editors review it. And one thing to keep in mind too is that, when you do, let's say you have a good outline and you run it through AI or chatgpt and it spits out the full article. Usually what we've seen is that that's not the best way to do it. Like the best way to do it is to break up your article so that way ChatGPT can really dig deeper, and then, or AI can really dig deeper, whatever AI tool you're using. So that way it's not trying to spread itself so thin. So what I've noticed is that if you try to just take it all in one go, it'll summarize a lot of things, not go deep, and it's very surface level. But if you break out, like let's say you're talking about 3 key takeaways to go on vacation in. So I live in Hawaii. So we do a site that does tourism guides in Hawaii. And instead of saying, what are the top 10 tips for first time visitors in Hawaii, instead of just letting AI do the whole article, we'd want to take the, first tip, have it write it, second tip, have it write it, and then so on. It takes a little bit longer, maybe, 20 minutes longer, 30 minutes longer, but it's really worth it, because once you get the tool to go deeper on these sections, then it can really give you a better quality output instead of just do all 10 at once. And I know that's like, it's just so easy just to fall into that like easy button. Like, let's just do all 10 tips instead of having to go through each one and then putting it together at the end. But if you compare it to what we were doing in the past, I mean, it saves us hours and days of back and forth. So it's still a lot faster. It's just, people get lazy. Even like very high performing, high impact teams, like it's just so easy just to fall in the trap of just, copy and paste. So that's my recommendation, is to really break it up, do each section for whatever content you're looking at instead of just one and done. So that way you can really get deeper into the quality.
So is it true that people who live in Hawaii are always on vacation?
Yeah, so my Instagram profile is my bio is trying to live my life like a vacation. But yeah, it's hard not to, go to the beach every day, to be honest with you. But you do get burnt out for sure. One funny thing though is we moved here about 4 years ago, and Hawaiians really know how to maximize their long weekends. So like Memorial Day weekend, for example, everybody takes Thursday, Friday off. There's like a bunch of like Hawaiian holidays for old kings, and they always put it on a Monday. So that way everybody gets a 3-day weekend. So it's like, there's maybe like 10, 15 3-day weekends here. So like everybody's just like, we're all on the same page. Like, yeah, let's just try to, we're here to live like it's a vacation. So yeah. So everyone's on vacation basically. And Aloha Fridays, nobody really works. They call it Aloha Fridays because it's usually you're working from home or you just take the day off. So 3-day weekends pretty much all year. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I got to get to Hawaii again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Well, you also mentioned something else that I think would be helpful to go in a little bit further. So when you were talking about like your pillars, can you go into that a little bit deeper? And that has nothing to do with AI, but it's a very helpful thing for you to be able to lay that out with AI.
Yeah, so I have a deep background in SEO. I've been doing it for almost 20 years now. And back in the day, you could just write about whatever target keyword you wanted and have the title, the keyword, and just write your content. Now people expect a little bit more of quality and kind of, a path and a journey to finding their solution. But with content pillars, you want to think of it as like it's just kind of like a house, right? And you want to support your main topic. So each pillar is strong enough to support, each corner of that house, the roof. with content pillars, it's really one of the better ways to do user experience. Because, for example, if you're writing about, tourism in Hawaii, and we're just talking about food and bouncing off to something else about, luxury hotels or rental car situations, it's just very hard to follow. Like, even with those three things, it's kind of like, well, what do I focus on, right? So the content pillars helps you structure it for the best user experience possible. And, let's remember that Google, that's their number one thing, is like they want the best user experience. So if you're writing for search engines, you're writing for people, you want to have these content pillars not only for the user, but for also, the Google algorithm to know what kind of content is most relevant. So you have to have these strong pillars to support your piece of content. So that's what we do with ChatGPT. Is we ask it first, here's the topic, pretend you're a digital marketer, pretend you're a content strategist, pretend you're an advertiser, and then what are the pillars that you would focus on? And that way we know whether or not it's on the right track. Because if it starts talking about pillars that don't even exist or not strong enough, then we might want to change our prompt to get it to come up with the content pillars that it understands, like, this is actually the quality content that we're trying to create. This is the purpose of it. So that structure is good to, for everybody. It's like a win-win for everybody, search engines, users, and the content producers. So,
yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
So I want to, you've already mentioned some of them, but there's a lot of value to using AI today, but I think there's also potentially some pitfalls. You mentioned some of them. What have you kind of noticed either has been minimized or that you're seeing more of from a kind of downside standpoint?
Yes. So I think from a downside standpoint that it kind of, from my personal experience from my team, it kind of makes us a little bit lazier in terms of, really putting together the process. Like, it's just so easy just to copy and paste, get it done. I use AI, I use ChatGPT pretty much all day. And sometimes instead of, searching for the actual piece of content that I know is out there, like there's a YouTube video that I know that I wanted to watch again. And instead of going to YouTube, I just go to ChatGPT and ask it the question, and it's a popular YouTube channel. It's called Impact Theory, and it's by Tom Bilyeu. And he goes deep. He's got all these experts of the world, and watching that YouTube video for an hour and 15 minutes would have probably benefited me more than going to ChatGPT and just getting like the highlights. Because I will be honest, I don't remember what ChatGPT said. I couldn't remember it. And it was, pretty comprehensive. Like, it had maybe 15 bullet points. But that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, I think that it's taking away from my human experience. Like, I rather go to YouTube, immerse myself in that learning, get involved, and really practice that critical thinking instead of having like a little cheat sheet of like, just tell me what I need to learn without learning it. So that's my personal experience, but I feel like that's what's happening. I talked to somebody that their coworkers are using this app called Ask AI for work. So every time they got something, that somebody asked them a question for work, instead of drawing from their own experience, they're firing up their app and they're just going to ask AI and then copy and paste into their email back to their boss. I'm just like, I don't know if that's the best way to be using AI. So I think it makes us lazier. But if we're aware of that, like, okay, well, maybe I should put in my reps. It's like you cannot get a six pack by not doing the workout. Like, you got to put in your reps. So I feel like that's something that I'm concerned about, that I've seen. Like, yeah, it's making people just super lazy, and it's just they're focusing more on convenience than quality and actually learning for getting, to get themselves, to improve themselves and make themselves better. So I think that's one thing. And I think the other thing too is just relying on it so heavily in terms of production. Like what I talked about, my friend with the beauty salons, like he could write something that's completely off and he could lose his whole audience, right? So the hallucinations that I've seen, that ChatGPT and other AI tools, like I've used Jasper.ai. And as a fact, I think Jasper has more hallucinations. We had to stop using it because it would just go strong, but then it would just taper off into these like really weird hallucinations where it was more gibberish. And it was like, I mean, and so I'm like, I'm looking at the piece of content. I'm like, I better go through this whole thing to make sure that there's no random word inserted. And that's what it was doing. It was just inserting random words where I think maybe it got stuck or something, some glitch happened where it would start inserting all these random words. And, you know, ChatGPT is not perfect either. And it'll start to insert like different, it'll say, you know, suggested SEO keywords. Sometimes it'll say that at the end of a blog post, which is really odd because it'll go strong for maybe 30 blog posts. And then, you know, towards that end, it'll start inserting things that you didn't ask it at the beginning. So maybe I'm thinking that it just like, you know, started to just taper off, you know, like it just didn't, it couldn't retain what we asked it originally. So like that's something that, you know, we really need to be careful of, is that it makes us lazy, it's super convenient. And then it starts to do these things where we really have to fact check it, especially, you know, depending on what industry you're in, just because of safety and it's just, you know, quality of that user experience. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, you know, how much bad information is actually going out there. I know that with ChatGPT 4, they've updated, you know, the database that is pulling from. It was all, you know, 2 years old, or older data that ChatGPT was actually pulling from. I'm not even sure what like Jasper is actually pulling from. Is it actually using like ChatGPT as its engine and it's just got another kind of, you know, UI on it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not, because Jasper charges way more than ChatGPT, like hundreds of dollars per month more. So I hope they're not just using ChatGPT, because just honestly, just go to ChatGPT if you're going to use that for content. And I'm not knocking Jasper. I think Jasper is really great for if you have a large team. Like, so we had a team of 5 writers, and I would just add everybody to the same document. Whereas ChatGPT, you're kind of stuck with your own interface, and you have to, you know, share that piece of content on a collaboration tool after that. So, but yeah, I think, you know, it's just, it's just, you just have to be careful with it. So
I'm curious, as a professional in the marketing side of things, what percentage of the content that is actually being produced today do you think either started with or is completely AI?
I would say 80, 90% of all the content out there today is AI. I mean, you cannot not use AI. I feel like it would be stupid not to, because it's just saves so much time. You know, I was talking to one of my friends from college, and he's starting up a sales effectiveness company, and I asked him, "Are you using AI for your company? How are you going to, you know, what's your game plan?" And he's like, "To be honest with you, we do it to 80, 90%. And then we take our experts and we start to, you know, finish it and make it unique." But I think if you look at a lot of, like sports news, for example, or finance news, like they're using AI because it's so much faster. You don't need like a human to, kind of analyze the event of what's happening in the finance or sports industry. Like it's clear as day, like this is what happened, you know, and it's just summarizing it. And they might put a spin to it, maybe add a little bit of humor, but you know, AI is actually pretty good at adding a little bit of like humor bits anyway. So I think it would be smart for people to use AI, but not use it completely because of the, you know, the quality controls and user experience. Well, I will say that some of the content out there that probably doesn't use AI are the lifestyle kind of bloggers. Like there's a lot of travel bloggers out there that, you know, you're hiking up top of the mountain, you have a selfie and you're writing about your experience in Bali or something like that. Like, I don't think AI can match that yet, because obviously you have to be there to experience it. So, you know, I see a lot of these lifestyle, like personal blogs and, you know, video blogs where you can't really use AI for that. Maybe to start things off about background, about the current location for travel, for example, or this experience as a parent, like, you know, like this is what most parents experience, things like that. But then the person actually living that experience, you know, is going to write it themselves. I think that's where you can't really use AI yet for that, just because you can't replace the human experience. Everybody's experience is so different and unique. So it'd be impossible for AI to really capture that. But one thing that just I thought of, I was taking this user survey. I don't know which manufacturer it is, but I'm pretty sure it's one of the big TV manufacturers, either Samsung or Sony. And it was like a blind survey, and they're asking about what if your smart TV would engage with you and you could talk to it, and it could generate all these different answers to it. And I'm like, that's really interesting. But then as I went through this survey, I'm like, how is the TV going to know what I went through today? Like, it was saying the TV can sense your mood and talk to you in an upbeat manner if you're like really happy, or like kind of be more calm if you've had a bad day. I'm like, going through the survey, I'm like, how is this going to happen? Like, how is that going to work? So towards the end, it's like, would you be comfortable sharing your browsing history, all your apps, all your photos, like basically following you around all day? So that way it knows to say a sweet little thing to you when you come home because you had a bad day because somebody cut you off on the freeway. I'm like, so that's the thing. That's when I started thinking about it. I'm like, AI still needs a human experience to generate that content, even if it's more of like this, like engaging kind of content. Like, it needs to know what you're doing. Like, unless we have, AI seeing what we see and feeling what we feel, like, it would be impossible for AI to know what you went through that day, because everybody's going to be different, and perception is reality. So, one person gets cut off in the expressway and they're pissed off, and one person gets cut off and they're like, I hope that person has a better day, and goes on their merry way and is happy. One person's sad. So it's like, how does AI know unless it watches your every move, which I don't think we're ever going to get to. If we do, then I think that would be a big problem. But yeah, so like, just back to the question. Yeah, I think 80-90% of the sites out there, content creators, are using AI in some capacity. And then the ones that are not using AI are the ones that are really living and breathing the human experience. And they don't want AI to kind of take away from that, because it's really impossible to know somebody's experience unless you're sharing every second of your day. So,
yeah, I think that's some good points. My thought when you were kind of sharing that was that there's going to be a type of content that triumphs in this age of AI. I'm curious your perspective on what you think that's going to be.
I think, the type of content that would triumph, I think it's more of the content that saves everybody time. Kind of like makes our life better kind of content. We want, every time there's like a industrial or technology revolution, technology does the heavy lifting. So I think the content that's really going to be prevalent with AI are the things that it's just a no brainer to help us live our better lives, best lives. Like, checking stocks, checking the weather, analyzing SEO, SEM reports, in terms of marketing. I think that's where it's going. I think AI is going to be doing a lot more analytics, because it's really finding patterns. And I think the machine is going to find patterns a lot faster than, a seasoned SEO specialist. Just hands down, going to be faster at taking that data and processing it, and things that are, I think, content that, not only with analytics, but also things that are maybe kind of universal, not universal knowledge, but things that are, like, I don't know how to call it, but kind of like one and done kind of knowledge. So for example, let's say I was, fixing, an electricity pole fell on the street the other day, and they had all these crews, doing the repairs. And maybe there's a guy that's on the team that's new, he can pull up AI to say, okay, what do I do? And I don't know what this, I've never seen this kind of situation. This electric transformer, as it was built in the 1980s in Hawaii, like, I have no idea what this is all about. They go into AI, they get that one and done knowledge to say, okay, this is how you take this apart. This is how you, hook it so you can ground it, things like that. And I'm just spitballing here. I don't know exactly how they do it for electricity, but that's something that I was thinking about. I'm like, you wouldn't want to retain that information, because it's probably going to happen once in your life. So I think that's a lot of the information in terms of like the learning management systems of like manufacturing or tech, or even, medicine and law, like things that you don't really need to retain. Maybe you don't want to Google it because you don't want to have to go through pieces of information that you want to put together yourself and you don't know which one's credible. So maybe there's going to be an LMS that's AI based where you can start to use different knowledge. It's like a knowledge base that's a one and done kind of thing. So like those are the things that I'm seeing that might be more prevalent with AI. Just heavy lifting with technology, making our lives better to for efficiency, and then that way we can spend more time on strategy and creative.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences on artificial intelligence, specifically how it's actually changing content creation, because I think it's not only a game changer, but it sounds like everybody's on board, right? At this point, with you saying 80 to 90%, and the 10% that aren't there don't want to be because of the type of content they're creating. So I think that's incredibly valuable. The other thing is this is going to be a series. So we're going to be having you on here for SEO and SEM the next time. And then we're going to be talking about email marketing, how we're leveraging AI to create personalized pure personalized experiences through email and et cetera. So I want to thank you for coming on here. Hey, how would somebody contact you? Because I know you run several different businesses, but you're still in marketing. You're still, helping people with that. So how would they connect with you? Is it LinkedIn? Where else?
If you can go to LinkedIn and search for Tony Boomanglog, I'll be there. And I also have TonyBoomanglog.com set up, and you can find me there as well. So.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, obviously, for coming on here. I want to thank my listeners for listening to What the Tech. We're going to have, like I said, a whole series of AI-specific topics and how you can leverage it, not only in marketing, but in business. We already did sales and a variety of other impactful topics. So I hope you'll hit that subscribe button and tune in next week. Thanks for listening today.